Hello guys, welcome to another video here, and in this video I'm going to be going over SSH penetration testing, basically in port 22. The SSH, which stands for secure shell, it's basically a cryptographic protocol that provides secure communication over an unsecured network. Usually non-protected login protocols like telnet, rlogging are usually not a secure alternative, and we also have insecure file transfer methods such like FTP and so on. So today we're going to be treating SSH. We're going to have a lab setup, how to use it basically, and then go over how to perform some secure shell penetration testing. Without further ado, what we just need here is the Kali Linux here, which is our attacker machine, and we're also going to be needing a target machine. So we're going to be using Ubuntu. Basically this is my Ubuntu machine, and the first thing I'm going to do for lab setup here is to quickly just create a user, and I'm going to call it sudo add user. I'm going to call it SSH pentest. Okay, SSH pentest. Hit enter. Okay, what it basically needs is my password here. Alright, so I'm going to set a password for this SSH pen test. I'm just going to use 123456. Okay, 123456. Hit enter. I'm going to skip all these ones, and is the information correct? Yes. Hit enter, and I think we basically created the user here. Alright, so to just quickly confirm that we have that user already set, I'm going to cut the etc password. And yeah, there we go. So basically we have this here, the SSH pen test here. Okay, so when we have this, next thing is let's come back to our Kali, but before we do that, we just quickly want to test for let's say if config. I want to see the IP address of my machine, which is 192.168.32.130. So the next thing here is I'm going to be installing the SSH server on the Ubuntu machine that we're going to use. So let me just quickly open a new tab. Sorry, I have to do this all the time, just because I need to take some screenshots after this. So to install the SSH server, you just use the apt. Let's just use sudo. No, I don't need that. Let's see. Sudo apt install, and that is open SSH. We're going to use .server, so it's open SSH -server. Hit enter. Sorry, I have to do this all the time, but it's better I just switch to okay. Alright, installing. So we'll give it a moment, and it says it opens server is already the newest version, so I already have that in my machine. If you don't, once you just install this, it should install completely. Okay, now that we have the SSH server running in our machine, SSH authenticates against the standard Unix user database, which means it uses the etc password or shadow password to log into SSH for any user. Okay, now that we've done that basically, and we have our IP address, let's now move over to Kali Linux here. Okay, all right, now we need to log into the machine, but first let me ping the IP address of the Ubuntu machine, and it's working. Okay, now that we see that it's working, the next thing we need to do is to enumerate. So we're going to start enumeration. We want to see if there is any open port in that machine. So we're going to use Nmap, and basically we need to use, let me just use -sv. I just want to use -sv, and then just the IP address. Hit enter. Okay, so let's wait a moment. Once we have the enumeration up, we should be able to see what services is running on this particular IP. Voila. Okay, Now with this we can see that we have port 8080 running, Apache Tomcat. I did install that, and then we also have most importantly what we're looking at for here is the SSH is open, which is open SSH. Okay, so port 22 is open for SSH, and let's say we don't actually have access to this machine. So the next thing we want to do is to try to brute force the password to this machine, and we're going to be using Hydra. Since authentication is password based, hence the service can be brute forced against a username and a password dictionary using Hydra. Okay, now we want to find the correct username and password for this particular machine. So the next thing we're going to do now is to employ Hydra. I think I would like to do this on the next page. Let's do this. So this particular page is for enumeration. Here we're going to be treating password cracking using Hydra. Okay, now we're going to employ Hydra. If you don't have Hydra, just type Hydra, hit enter. It's going to install it for you. You can install Hydra in your machine. So we have Hydra dash L. I don't have list of let me see. In order to make the whole thing fast, I'm just going to create a user list. Okay, I'm going to create a user list and just name them Tom user 1, and we're going to include the user we have, which is SSH pen test, and we're going to use hacker. I think 4 is okay. Let's just make it 5 hacker, and then we have Jerry. Okay, so we have that saved. And next we're going to create a password list, or I can just use the password, the rocket.txt file, but let me just use pass.txt. Let's just use 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then 1 1 2 2 ADF 1 2 3 1 2 3 4. I think that's 5 already. Okay, so I'm going to save that, Ctrl X. So we have our password list. Let me see where we are. Root ls. Okay, what we need, a password and user list. So we can now pull up our Hydra dash L. I'm going to use capital letter L. I'm going to use the user list, and then next is dash P, capital P for password list. I'm going to use pass.txt, and then we have our IP address. Okay, then we're going to include SSH, because this is what we're brute forcing. If we're using Hydra to brute force HTTP, you're just going to put the HTTP address. If you're using FTP and so on, so it depends on the protocol you're brute forcing. So with this we're doing for SSH, so I'm going to hit enter. So Hydra is running, so let's quickly wait a little bit, and there we go. So you can see we have an SSH brute forced. We have login, username, correct username is SSH pen test, and the password is 123456. Okay, now that we're done with password cracking, next, since we've obtained the username as SSH pen test and we have our password as 123456, so the attacker can now authenticate into the SSH service by using the command SSH. Let's open up a new terminal here. So we're going to use SSH, and then we're going to use the username, which is SSH pentest, okay, at the IP address. Okay, once you hit enter, it's going to require you a password. Look first, yeah, just see yes. So it's going to ask for a password, then we impute the 123456. You kindly note that you including the password, it doesn't really show you that you're imputing password, but it's taking it. So you hit enter. So we imputed a password, and here, as you can see, we have our initial access, and if you say who am I, hit enter, we're going to see that we're SSH pentest. Okay, now that we have an initial access, there's another way to actually authenticate. The alternative way to actually perform this procedure is by using Metasploit. Okay, Metasploit, it's an alternative way to perform the above procedure. So we're going to use MSF console, and I'm going to use -Q to make it silent. It means it's not going to load up that huge MSF console that it usually does. So let's give it a second. All right, so it's ready now. Basically, we're going to be using an exploit called more like the multi SSH slash SSH exec. So I'm just going to type that in. What we usually use is use exploit, and it's multi, and then SSH SSH exec. So hit enter. Once we use this, basically the next thing is it's going to default to it. So we're basically in here. We're going to set the R host. Okay, we're going to set R host here. Okay, and it's going to be the IP address of our target machine. Hit enter. We already have the R host. Next, we're going to set a payload. The payload we're going to be using is the Linux, this Linux, let me see here, x86, yeah, Metasploit. Okay, and it's going to be the reverse underscore TCP. Okay, now we have that. Let's hit enter. That's the payload we're using, and then we're going to set the username. The set username of the machine, which is SSH pen test, and hit enter. Now we have the username. We're going to set the password. Set password, and it's going to be 123456. Hit enter, and we're going to show targets. But before we show targets, we're going to be, you can actually use options. The whole thing we put in here is because you have to know what this particular info is taking, and from here you can see it takes password which you've imputed, R host, port is default to 22, SSL false, and so on. So we have a username here, part, yes. So with that now, next I'm just going to check in for let's check for show target. While we're showing targets, so we'll be able to pick a target machine that we want. So we have Linux 86, Linux X4, and so on. So we're going to be using 1. So you just set it to 1. Once you set it to 1, we hit enter. Sorry. We're going to set target. Set target 1. Target is now set to 1, and now we're going to just exploit. Okay. Hit enter. So let's wait a little bit. Running. Metasploit section 1 is open, and there we go. So we got that, and we can actually just check, let's say system info. It's going to be sysinfo. Hit enter, and we can see the informations about the system. Let me see if who am I works. Who am I? It doesn't, not all commands works in Metasploit though. So system info, we'll be able to see that that's the IP of our machine and so on. So this is actually another way to actually get the remote access using SSH. Previously we've done the manual way, which is just using the SSH protocol, is SSH to the username and then the IP, then you impute the password, and now we've done using the Metasploit. Now what's the next thing we're going to play around with here? We're going to be running commands on the remote machine. There's also a way to, let me exit this for a while. No need. Let me open up a new terminal here. So what we're going to do now is, let's say we want to run commands on the remote machine. SSH service can also be used to run system commands on a remote machine. The following command can be used. Let's say use the SSH. Okay, we're looking at SSH pentest as the username at the IP address of our machine. Okay, so what we want to run is, let's run a command called ifconfig. Okay, ifconfig. This is the command we want to run. Okay, if we hit enter, it's going to ask us for a password. Our password is 123456. Hit enter, and as you can see, it gave us the IP, the ifconfig information. All right, if you want, you can try a different thing. So we say SSH, the same thing, but the command we want to run now should be, let's say pwd, or let's just say who am I. Let's run id. Okay, ID. We want to see ID of the machine. Hit enter. It's going to ask us for the password 123456. Hit enter, and voila, you see, it gives us that information. So you can actually use this particular protocol to actually just run commands. But moreover, if you know exactly what you're looking for, you don't want to log in first before doing it, you can just use this. Now, the next thing I want us to take is SSH port redirection. Okay, so let's go back quickly to Ubuntu here. Okay, now by default SSH uses port 22, all right, which comes under the well-known port list. However, we can enable the SSH service to run on any alternative port number by performing the port redirection. That's what we call port redirection. The port redirection can be performed by changing the port number in the SSH config file. And to do that, let me just open up a new tab here, increase that a little bit. So to go there, we just let's cd into etc SSH, hit enter. If we ls SSH config, this is the one we want to go into, SSH config. So to do that, we're just going to let's nano that particular file, SSH underscore, let me see, complete, hit enter. Voila, now we're here. Okay, now we're here. Well, I'm sure if we can make changes. I didn't use sudo. Let me close that quickly. So I'm going to use sudo because if I make changes I won't be able to do that because I'm not root. So sudo nano SSH underscore, or let's just say underscore config, hit tab, complete, enter. It's asking for password. All right, now here we go. So you see the difference. If you just watch over here, you can see it's the port 22 is commented because by default it's on port 22. Now it is commented because it's default. Now if we want to change it, we can just uncomment this particular one and put the port number we want it to be on. Okay, the default is actually port 22, like we've mentioned. Now what we're going to do is we're going to change this port to 222.222.220 or any port that we want it to be in. So quickly, I'm just going to navigate here. Okay, and I'm going to change this to port 2220. Okay, port 2220. Okay, port 2220. So I'm going to Control O here to save it, and I'm Control X. Now that we've done this, right, if we come back to our Kali machine, all right, we want to run a quick enumeration again. So we'll run a nmap -sv, okay, and our IP address, okay, IP address 192.168.32.130, I believe. Hit enter. Let's see what happens. Oh, sorry, I did 120 instead of 130, the IP address. Okay. Alright, something is wrong. It still says here the port is 22. It didn't take note of it. Okay, it says port 22. Still port 22. Let's go back. Let's see if we did something wrong here. So let's sudo nano configuration file port 22 here, of course. Right. Let's see. Does it take a couple of seconds to do that or to take note of it? So it's port 22 here, right? And we already changed it to port 222. Let me just change it to port. Let's change it to port 2222 here. Let's see, but that shouldn't be the case. Hit enter. Control X. So now that we've done that, should I stop SSH and restart it? Let's try again. If it doesn't work, I'll just stop the service and restart it. Coming back to Kali, let me run this again. Okay, let's run this again and let's see. still port 22. So I think maybe the service needs, let's see, to restart the service. I think I just need to restart the service. To restart the service, we can just stop the service and restart it. The command should just be sudo systemctl, and I'm just going to restart ssh.service. Okay, I think ssh.service. Hit enter. I believe it should have done that. I'll run that again. Sudo systemctl restart ssh.service, and I'm going to run quickly check it, look at our file again. We're still on port 22. Okay, that's 2222. So back, let's go back to our Kali, and I'm going to close this again and then run the nmaps again, and let's see. Voila. Okay, so here we go now. So we have that working now as port 2222. You notice the difference? I think the system didn't really take it at first, so we had to restart. So now that we have this on port 2222, you can notice that after saving the changes and restarting the SSH service, the port now is 2222. Now we can still do have we need to run, like if we are to run a brute force on this. Remember the first time we ran a brute force here, which is hydra-l user.txt-p password, we use SSH. We did not include the port because by default it was running on port 22. Now that we have it on a different port, so we're going to run Hydra, and there's a different, just a little switch that we need to add to it, which is -l, which is first we're going to see that let's put the user, and then -l user, and then -p password.txt. Now we're going to use our IP address 192.168.32.130, and it's the SSH service, secure shell SSH service. Now we're going to use -s. -s is what we use when we want to specify a port, and then the port is what, 2222. Okay, -s is what we use when we want to specify a port for SSH service. Okay, 2222. So we hit enter, and our SSH service is running, and voila, there we go. We have on port 2222 SSH service on this IP address. We have the login is SSH pentest as the username, and the password is there. Okay, how do you log in when you have a different port number? So for SSH, so you just use SSH, the username is SSH pentest, and our IP address is 192.168.32.130. In this case, we need to specify the port using -s 2222, the same way we did when we were trying to brute force. So if we hit enter, connect to SSH. Sorry, -p is different here. Sorry, -p, the port, hit enter, is asking for a password, and then the password here is 123456. Hit enter, and there we go. Okay, there we go. Alright, so that's that. Next thing we're going to be treating here is Nmap SSH brute force script. Okay, Nmap SSH brute force script. So let's go into a new tab here. Usually there are a lot of default scripts we use in Nmap repository, which can be used if the port 22 is open. Now in order to just make this quickly, let's go back to Ubuntu, and I'm going to change this IP again. Let's put it back to port 22 and comment. You can just comment it out, port 22, and I'm just going to comment it out. Control O, hit enter, Control X. Now I'm also going to restart the service. Sudo systemctl restart service. So just do it again. Okay, now that we've done that, I'll go back to my Kali. Just a quick nmap here. I don't need to put that. Okay, let me just put -sc. What's that? Let me be sure it's back on 192.168.32.130. Hit enter. Just want to confirm it's back on port 22, so we can go over to doing the Nmap SSH brute force script. So we're back here on port 22 for SSH. So with that, I'm going to close this. Now usually if you want to check out for scripts, there's a lot of scripts, default scripts for Nmap. You can use Nmap and then you type dash script, scripts under just scripts, and in this case we're going to use a script called SSH brute. Okay, it's just a simple script, SSH brute. All right, SSH brute. So basically what we're trying to do here is here we will talk about most common scripts used to brute force the username and password. Let's say you don't want to use Hydra, you want to use Nmap to brute force password. So the script used to perform is the SSH brute script, which by default uses username file from the NSE lib data username list and the NSE lib data password list. Okay, so which is what we're doing now. So that script, SSH dash brute, and that's the script we're using, and we're going to use dash p. The port number by default we're using 22, so we have our IP address 192.168.32.130. I don't want to go into deep onto Nmap script. We'll have a different video for Nmaps and all that. So if we do this, we just hit enter. Okay, so it's brute forcing. It's going to take a lot, but it's going to brute force naturally. You see it's picking up different names and so on to brute force it. Okay, so this is going to take a while. So while it's running, I'm going to quickly do something here. Here we're gonna enumerate for SSH authentication method. Let's say we want to know what authentication method a particular SSH service is running for a particular IP or a machine. So what we're going to do is the SSH authentication method can be enumerated using what we call the SSH-auth method script in Nmap. Like I mentioned, there's a lot of scripts, but I'm just going straight to the point here. So this script is going to basically use it's going to use a flag called -script-args. We're going to go into it. So we're going to use Nmap. Okay, Nmap, and we're going to use --script, of course. We're using this script here, and it's for SSH. The script we're using is SSH-auth. Okay, dash methods. All right. Now we're also going to use the script args or argument. So let's say script and -args. If we want to use a username here, we're going to use script -argument. So more like this, equals to, I believe. So we're going to use username here. The username is ssh.user. Okay, equals to SSH pentest. So we use this to actually give out the username of the particular machine, and then we're going to just give -p, which is for the port 22, and then we're going to add the IP address 192.168.32.130. Okay, so basically the script here is SSH-auth methods, and then to specify the username we use the -script-args, and then we're going to use ssh.user is equals to SSH pentest. Okay, this is how we write it: -p, the port number, and then the IP address. Hit enter, and as you can see here, it has enumerated that it's using a password and a public key. So the above command enumerated that the authentication type used for the SSH service is both public key and password. Okay, that's what this shows. Okay, now let's quickly see. This is still enumerating. I'm just going to stop it there, but this is just to show you how we can use Nmap SSH to brute force for password and username. So I might just stop it here or just allow it to keep running. So next thing here that we're going to do is I'm going to talk about key-based authentication. Okay, key-based authentication. So in order to do this, I have to come back to my Ubuntu again. When I'm back to the Ubuntu, what we're going to be looking out for here is under key password-based authentication. This offers a secure and user-friendly method for accessing remote servers without relying on passwords. Okay, this is more like the option to log into a particular service without a machine, without a particular using password. These techniques employ a pair of cryptographic keys, all right, a private key stored on your local device and a public key saved on a remote server. In order to do this, let's just quickly open up a new terminal here. Okay, so what we're going to run is just SSH keygen. All right, hit enter. It's generating a public and a private SSH key. So enter the file in which to save the key. So here we're not going to specify, it automatically would save it to our ssh.ssh file. So hit enter, and it says already exists. So we have an ID RSA already exists. So I'm going to overwrite it by clicking Y, enter passphrase or empty for no passphrase. So for the passphrase here, I'm going to use 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, enter passphrase again. I'm going to use 1 2 3 4 5. Okay, hit enter, and I think that's it. We've created that, and basically it automatically led us to ETH SSH. So for ls, let me see here. Okay, this is where we are actually. All right, now in order to see the keys that we created, we're going to just log into, let me hit enter here. Okay, well, let's cd into .ssh. all right, let's go back to the default machine, cd.ssh, hit enter, ls. As you can see here, we have the ID RSA and the IDRS port. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to copy the public key, which is the IDRSA pub, which is public. We need to copy it into the authorized keys. To do this, we need them, they are basically here on the same directory, right? But in order to do this, the authorized keys file on the remote server contains the list of public keys. The authorized keys, this contains the list of all the public keys that are authorized to access the server. So by copying the public key into the authorized key, it means that you are telling the server to trust any connection that presents the corresponding private key. So in order to see what happens, let's cut this particular IDRS .pub. Okay, see, this is basically how it is. Okay, we want to confirm that when we copy the IDRS .pub and we copy this, and we want to copy it into Ctrl C, Ctrl V. So copy this, and then in this same directory we want to save it as authorized keys. You hit enter, ls. So I'm going to cut the authorized key, and it should be the same. Okay, and so it equals to immunize, so it should be the same. So having done this right now, we need to disable the password-based authentication, so it will be able to, it won't affect us when we're trying to log in. So in order to disable that, we need to go back to our SSH SSD config file. We just, let me cd, so cd to etc SSH, and here we're going to sudo nano the SSHD, am I getting this correct? SSHD config file, I believe. Hit enter. Alright, here we are. So what are we looking for? We're looking for public key authentication. No, we're looking for, look at it here, to disable tunneled clear test password, change to no here. Okay, so this is it. So this is basically password authentication. Yes, you see that by default. So if we uncomment this, we'll set it to no. Okay, we'll uncomment this, we'll set it to no. So I'm going to come down to that particular place here. uncommented it, so we have password authentication, and then we're going to set it to no. Save that. So once we've saved that, now what we need to do next is to now again enumerating the service using SSH Auth method. Remember when we did that back here on Kali, just the way we did it right here. So but before I do that, I've learned my lesson, so I have to restart the service. So let's say sudo systemctl SSH no restart. Then we have ssh.service, complete that, hit enter. So I've restarted the service now. If I go back to my Kali, I run this same command here, which is just the same script. We just want to know the authentication method available, hit enter. What did you notice? We see we had password and public key, and over here we only have public key. Okay, so which means that we can only use public key to authenticate. Having noted that, now the next thing we need to understand is if we try to log in now, okay, let's say we try to log in the SSH using SSH pentest at 192.168.32.130. all right, let's say we want to log in this right now. Okay, if you hit enter, it's going to tell you that SSH pentest at this permission denied, it needs a public key. All right, so usually what we might anticipate in this part is if we assume a scenario where we have the private key of the Ubuntu server or the Ubuntu user, then we can directly log in using the based authentication. We can see that maybe in part 2. For now, I'm going to be stopping here. I hope you enjoyed this video. Today we've really covered a lot. SSH penetration testing port 22. We've covered a lot of things here today, and I'm happy that you still stuck with me. Thank you guys for learning with me. Thank you for studying with me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao.